All right, let's turn our attention to that market picture now and see how things are faring. It certainly has been quite an interesting one of late. Today we're slightly higher, around 0.33%, but it comes from the mixed picture that we sort of got out of Asia early this morning as well. The Hang Seng and the Nikkei both going down, while the Shanghai Composite was the only one going up. And that comes despite the fact that there's seemingly a fight between the two consulates there. In the United States, we've heard them ask indeed for China perhaps to get a sense of how things are faring. They're deciding to close the consulate down in Texas in the United States. And then China, of course, retaliating much the same. In Chengdu, they've decided to close down the US consulate there as well. So geopolitical tensions rising up again, so a bit of a mixed picture when it comes to that Asian trading. That's filtered through into the European market as well, also pretty much mixed. Only the DAX in Germany going up 0.2% there. As I said, more than 1/3% higher for the JSE all share there. A lot of that led by the resource stocks, which have been pulled up by the gold counters actually. So all that glitters seemingly is gold. A lot of that coming through from the fact that some of these markets are seemingly going a whole lot higher because the gold price has gone higher as well. It's actually reached record levels, $1,941 a fine ounce now. It was at 1,943 in fact. Surpassing that figure that we saw in November 2011. That's an all-time high now for that oil, for that gold price, should I say, climbing up more than 2% at present. Also a big climb as well for platinum. That's gone to $940 a fine ounce, 2.9% to the good as well there. And that just means demand keeps on picking up. Perhaps slow to recover is the rest of the world at this time. And perhaps people not thinking that the world will recover as quickly as we may have initially thought. 1/3% better off is the Brent crude price. That's at $43.50 a barrel there. Strength for the local currency then, having went all the way into 16 Rand 70 odd against the US dollar. It's 1.33% weaker this afternoon as we kick off the day's the midday trading. It's at 16 Rand and 44 cents against the greenback. A euro is 19.27 and it's 21.16 then for a British pound. Let's unpack this market movement and a whole lot more happening across the world. Gary Boyson joins us now and he's right here. He's from Rand Swiss. Gary, thank you so much for the time. So just going up 0.4% is the JSE all share. Not much to write home about unless you're in a gold counter. Of course, those just continue to rise higher and higher.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very mixed market today. So we're seeing the likes of the South African banks under a lot of pressure, but the gold count is absolutely rocketing. So we've had some trading statements coming out on gold and plats companies, but likes of Goldfields up almost 10% at one point. Anglo Gold up around 6%. So they're certainly leading the upside. As I suppose the dollar weakens and the underlying metal prices just explode.
I think that's the dollar's lowest in about 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, or is it 2 months?
Yeah,
somewhere there. Actually.
Yeah, so if you have a look at it, so we track the dollar index quite closely. So the dollar index is trading around 93, which is, I'm not sure if it's 2 months or 2 years, but it's certainly been coming down aggressively over the last week or so. So that's helping to lift, and you're seeing it in our currency, obviously in the currency pair as well. Yeah. So that's why you're seeing the Rand going back to test at 16.44 level. We saw it get briefly to about 16.35 last week, and before kind of, I think, nerves setting in on Friday around that tension in China. And that just, seeing a little bit of risk off trade coming into the market, pulling us back a little bit, but back on the front foot again today, which is wonderful to see.
Let's unpack those gold stocks just a little bit more. I mean, we saw a little bit of the trading statement coming out of Anglo Gold Ashanti as well. They're actually expecting things to not necessarily look too good, but it isn't the worst considering the dynamic that we have with COVID-19.
Absolutely. So if you look at it, the operations outside South Africa have actually done very, very well. So they operate in Ghana, DRC, and Brazil as well. And if you look at the amount of ounces that they've actually sold, they have dropped, but they've only dropped slightly. And that's very encouraging for the companies. So it's a little bit different story with the platinum miners. But what you're really getting in the gold miners at the moment is the operating leverage. So essentially, they have an all-in sustaining cost at one point. And as that metal price, which they're really price takers, they don't control the price of gold. I mean, this is very much rallying because because of lower interest rates. It's rallying because of the concern around the impact on our monetary system of these very experimental stimulus measures across the globe, and you're just suddenly seeing this operating leverage kick in. They're making it a very low price. Suddenly the price of their product is way higher than it used to be. I mean, for Anglo Gold, over their reporting period, they were pointing out that it's 25% higher in their period.
Yeah.
They've just got to suddenly, everything they're selling is they're getting 25% more revenue for. So it's wonderful for shareholders, and it's really good for their bottom line. And that's why you just see those earnings really, really lifting aggressively.
Sure. Platinum markets, as you've made note of those as well, and you just saw Anglo Plats also come out with their half-year results as well earlier today. It seems a good set when you first take into cognizance that revenue has climbed up more than 20%, and the platinum price has got as well. PGM's going up more than 50%. So good on that front. Of course, earnings dipping down. You had a whole close of operations to only go down 7%. You'd take that, surely.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that. I think it's a lot more difficult for the platinum miners than potentially some of the gold miners. So if you have a look at Amplat specifically, like they lost about 500,000 ounces over the lockdown period. It's very difficult. I mean, while they were allowed to go back, with partial capacity at the beginning of June. Yeah. It's very difficult to run these kind of deep platinum mines, which they mine UG2 and Morensky reefs, which are very, very thin reefs. It's very deep level mining. It's very complex mining that they have to do as well. Now, if you have a look at obviously the underlying company, yes, they had large inventories which they could sell down, but as you say, and that's helped to kind of lift that revenue line when you look at what they managed to sell compared to the platinum price. But their overall volumes dropped a lot more than some of the gold miners, and that's where you've seen the pressure coming through on earnings. I mean, they had salaries to pay. They kept people employed over the lockdown period. They've had to, they are now, I think they're operating about an 80% capacity at the moment, looking to move that up to about 95% at the end of the year. But they've got much, much more stringent safety standards that they've now got to comply with, given the COVID pandemic. So that's, of course, adding costs to their bottom line as well. So I think it's a very difficult situation the new CEO finds themselves in, finds herself in at least.
Yeah.
But I think hopefully as things get back to normal, we'll start seeing them benefiting a little bit more from the higher prices.
Yeah, this couldn't have been a hospital pass, any more of a hospital pass than from the former CEO than anything else, really. Okay, let's take a look at some other stuff. Some earnings numbers also coming out this week. Some of the ones you may be excited about, perhaps. Louis Vuitton as well. LVMH coming out with some earnings as well later today.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see. So LVMH is really, it gives us a window into what happens at Richemont as well. So Richemont's obviously a local company, but servicing an international clientele, and the majority of their earnings coming from offshore, but listed on our exchange. So when you look at LVMH, it's going to be interesting to see how, I suppose, the wealthy have reacted to the COVID-19. They've got products like Sephora's. They do perfume. They do things like obviously like high-end drinks and alcohol, which in South Africa has been a problem, but overseas, I mean, are people drinking more? Are they spending more on alcohol? We're going to find out today, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how I suppose the upper echelons of society are reacting. Are they more conservative with their funds? And we're going to see that in the results later today.
Fantastic, Gary. We have run out of time though. So much more we could have spoken about, but thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it there. Gary Boyson from Rand Swiss then joining us and helping us unpack that market movement a whole lot more. Do stick around though. Right after the short break, we do get to chat to the CEO of Anglo American Platinum. That's Natasha Viljoen. She's with us right after this. Stay tuned.